fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get involved!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the iRacing official Aussie Driver Search V8 Supercars Championship Season 2 2019, round number 2 here from Canadian Motorsport Park. We are so pleased tonight to be bringing you this race on the iRacing Esports Network, proudly presented by SimSpeed TV this evening. My name is Zach Hanlon. Joining me in the commentary booth tonight is David Haynes. And we have Jay Kennedy flicking those fantastic TV pictures that we see for you this evening. And David, this is going to be a very interesting race. There are 13 official iRacing V8 Supercar titles in this race, a very sharp field and a very tight qualifying time at the moment.
Yep, exactly. Qualifying underway right now, just under 4 minutes left, and you can see on the right-hand column some of the names that are up there for the qualifying right now, and anyone who knows iRacing V8 Supercars will look down that list of names and think that this is a very, very well-stacked grid tonight. It's going to be fiercely competitive. It's going to be really quick.
Yeah, and there's quite a few teams that are occupying the top 5 spots at the moment. We've got Madison Down for TTR, Cooper Webster ERT, Jackson Suslin Harlow for TTL, Brett Loxton for Zuva Racing, and Ethan Warren for Astro Gaming Altus Esports. Another man who's looking to put himself well inside that top 5 is a 2-time champion, Sam Blacklock, not resigning actually, champion, teammate to the residing champion, but he's coming around the final corner now, White's corner. Nice amount of curb on the exit there, and comes across the line for a 1:18.0, which is good for 3rd position. So very close, and just managing to sneak himself above Jackson Suslin Harlow there. He's got a 2nd lap though. Mitchell McLeod, another man with an official V8 Supercars title under his belt, currently doesn't have a lap on the board, and he's looking to try and get one up there. Track temperature at the moment, 38 degrees, about 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the server time. We're expecting a 38 lap race this evening with about 1 stop for 25 to 30 litres. So we think that people can pit as early as lap number 11 and as late as lap number 27, which opens up a fairly wide field of strategy for our competitors this evening. As you can see on screen at the moment, 23.4 degrees ambient temperature and 37.8 on the track. And it has to be said, some monumental winds here at Motorsport this evening, 35 kilometers an hour. That is extremely blowy. But luckily for these V8 Supercar drivers, not too much aerodynamic effect on this car, so it will buffet them around a little bit, but it won't make a massive difference. As Sam Blacklock now coming along the line for his 2nd lap, and just 0.05 of a second slower than his first attempt there.
Yeah, exactly, of course. Pretty quick laps around here, 77 seconds or so. A lot of the drivers have already completed their 2 flying laps. Mitchell McLeod gets his first one in there at 1:18.5. Doesn't look like he's going to take a second one or improve.
Yeah, and Andrew Gilliam is struggling for some pace at the moment. The Pursuit Sim Racing driver has put in some stellar performances, especially last season, where he picked up a win and a couple of podium positions as well. very talented driver in that V8 Supercar, but at the moment, fairly out of place, you would have to think. Down there in 17th position, but it does look like the majority of our drivers have concluded qualifying this evening, and we will go through our grid with you. Madison Down for Trans-Tasman Racing takes away pole position this evening ahead of Evolution Racing Team's Cooper Webster. Sam Blacklock got late on the board in his Logitech GL to C Sports machine for 3rd position, alongside Jackson Suslin Harlow for TTL Esports on the 2nd row of the grid. Row 3 combines Brett Loxton from Zuva Racing and Ethan Warren in the Astro Gaming Altus Esports car. John Emerson for TTL Esports will line up against Marlon McMullen, who's now a privateer on that 4th row of the grid. In 9th place, we have Jack Boyd, who's going to line up alongside Brian Borg in his Premier Esports Racing Team car.
11th place is going to be Michael Cracknell, and he's going to be sharing row 6 with Wayne Burke. Behind them is Mitchell McLeod and Michael Teliancic. 15th place is going to be Guy Leach, and 16th place is Steve Jansen. 17th place is, as you mentioned, Andrew Gilliam. Alongside him will be Christian Smart from Gone Rogue Motorsports. 19th place is Greg Sharp, and 20th is Brody Whitmore.
And to round out our 24-car grid this evening, Chris Coxhead in the V8 Sleuth Esports team. Watch out for him. He's had some good performances recently and is very much a racer, more so than a fast lap time man. James Mackey for the CMR team, also looking to go through the grid from 22nd. Paul Mansell and Clint Shane Smith will round out our 24-car grid this evening. Madison Down was very quick to grid up on to the track. Soon as that button was available, he smashed it, and he has been sitting on that grid looking down towards turn 1 ever since. As the rest of the cars start queuing up behind him, they've got about another 50 seconds to make their way onto the grid, but we do expect that they will be on there before that. 38 laps here tonight in Canada at Motorsport. It's going to be a lot of very tight battling. As you mentioned, David, only 77 roughly seconds a lap here, and a lot of draft involved as well. Very few corners, a lot of them high speed. Look for the Moss corner, turn number 5 and 6. Very tight double right-hander and a large braking zone as they come into there with some high speed. That will definitely be one of the prime opportunities for overtaking this evening. But right now, people are going to be looking to make up spots off the start of the grid as the revs rise here at Mosport, and we are away. Good start there from Madison Down, who comes very aggressively over in front of Cooper Webster, and Sam Blacklock gets off the line beautifully. He's already slid himself into position number 2 there ahead of Cooper Webster. Good start for the Altus Esports driver. They're fanning out as they come into turn number 1. There's a little bit of an attack there from Cooper Webster, and Jackson Susan Harlow also looking quite eager. I think that's Michael Cracknell alongside John Emerson there, who gets through. Going to have to go 2 by 2 as they come through down the next tight and very fast left-handed downhill into this very technical braking zone, especially in a V8 Supercar, and that's the Premier Esports car of Brian Borg getting very sideways down into Moss Corner here. Everyone doing a great job. I think that's Wayne Burke in the OPR car. A little bit of a bump there as he comes down the inside of, I think that's possibly Michael Cracknell in the background there. But Madison Down has gotten off to a fantastic start. So we watch Michael Taliancic going side by side with Brian Borg, and also Andrew Gilliam going side by side just behind him as well with Chris Coxhead. Gilliam takes that position away, and Taliancic is able to pull ahead of Brian Borg as well. We come to the conclusion of the first lap here. That was a TTL Esports car in the background there. John Emerson getting a little bit wide as he's being closely followed by Marlon McMullen there. So a good clean start from this 24 car field. A little bit of argy-bargy early on, but very clean start from this field at the moment.
Yeah, Blacklock, as you mentioned, jumping that spot off the grid, so he's up 1 spot, and now he's definitely closing in Madison Down, only 4/10 for the lead there. They're going through the sweeping corners that make up most of this circuit before they come down to Moss. Definitely the slowest part of the circuit. Hard on the brakes, very, very slow here compared to, and in contrast to, the sweeping nature of the rest of the circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's Marlon McMullen going for a move down the inside of John Emerson there. It's going to be a drag race all the way up to the S's, but Marlon McMullen struggling to get that traction down. And now Jack Boyd's going to maybe have a bit of an opportunity here around the outside of the S's. Going to tuck back in quickly for a little bit of extra speed in the draft, as does McMullen. Fans to the inside there, going to go for the move. Jack Boyd's going to maybe follow him through, and that's a Zuva racing car just behind of Michael Cracknell, who's looking to get pretty interested in this battle as well. He shows his intention, going a little bit for a dive on Jack Boyd there, and Wayne Burke's going to get involved as well, and that's a John Emerson. Big moment for him, straight into the OPR car there of Wayne Burke, and John Emerson trying to keep out of the way. He's pulled off to the side of the road immediately. A modem simulation replay of that little event there. So 2x2 with Marlon McMullen through the S's here. And as he came off the exit of White's there, car just got a little unsettled. Didn't see if there was any help involved there from possibly Jack Boyd. We see here a little bit of a bump there from Jack as he just clipped that inside curb there and got the car up on two wheels. Very unfortunate, Wayne Burke as well. And Michael Taliancic had a huge moment into turn number one also. And Michael, luckily enough, able to soldier on. So we'll see what happened there. So there's a bit of a check-up here. And Michael, oh, jeez, he just managed to squeeze through both of those cars. And Wayne Burke just didn't see that he was there. He mustn't have seen that he was there. Just came back across the track without any intention of leaving room. And can only imagine that he was completely blindsided to that car. So good first opening lap for these guys, but starts getting a little messier. And James Mackey is going for a move on Guy Leach. He's going to have to go around the outside through the second part of the S's, gives him the inside at White's, and that's job done for, pardon me, it was the other CMR car up ahead, which got the move done there. And Michael Taliancic now in this battle as well with Steve Jansen, who got that job done on Guy Leach there. So very nice driving from the CMR team driver. Ethan Warren here looking to get past Brett Loxton in this early stage. We saw Ethan last week progressing through the field very well in the early stages of the race and earning himself a podium finish to boot as well. But he's going to have to get past the very experienced driver in Brett Loxton, who's just run a little bit wide on the entry as they come down into Moss there. Lives to die another day. Now Suslin Harlow just up ahead of these guys is going side by side with Cooper Webster. Webster got a poor exit as he came out of Moss there, and this is going to be a big advantage to Suslin Harlow, who's looking to be on the attack for the last couple of laps here. Nicely done, and forces Cooper Webster to tuck back in behind the TTL Esports driver. Very nice move there.
Yep, so a little bit of a shuffle in your top four. Brett Loxton in fifth behind is honestly holding up Ethan Warren a little bit, and then back towards the start of the top 10. They're battling there as well, nearly 3 wide into the final corner.
I have to say as well, Andrew Gilliam, we said he was out of position, already up 6 spots as they go 3 wide into turn number 1. Come on, guys, teammates as well on the inside and the outside, putting Michael Taliancic in a V8 sleuth sandwich, and they all come out the other side. Michael's not going to give up though, but maybe should have. A little bit of contact there as he went for the turn in at turn number 2. Both of the V8 sleuth drivers make it through, and I think that's one of the Gone Rogue Motorsports cars made a bit of a advantage out of that one as well, but slow for Michael Taliancic. Greg Sharp going for a move up the inside as well. And the V8 sleuth guys are going to go side by side here, not leaving much room between them. And that's the 24 car of Christian Smart in that Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. Got himself between those 2 V8 sleuth guys, but has fallen back now. Looking at Andrew Gilliam, who's going for another move. This time it's on Brody Whitmore in the One Performance racing car. And that is another position for the Pursuit Sim Racing driver, as Brody's going for a move here on Andrew. So Brody's actually caught up here, or Andrew's possibly made a mistake, because he was ahead of Mitchell McLeod at the beginning of this lap, and he is no longer in that position. He has to run wide through the final corner and possibly give up a little bit of track position. Very close, running him to the wall, almost at turn number 1, and there was no room left there whatsoever. Great driving to get both of those cars through turn number 1, but think these guys really know track positions extremely important, as we see a couple of these groups starting to spread out a little bit already. And guys are really desperate to get some of these moves done early on.
Yep, and McLeod here had a pretty poor start, dropped back 4 or 5 spots, but then avoided some of that chaos we saw with that involved Teliancic and others. Now he's back up into 11th, and he's having a good look at Brian Borg. This would put McLeod into the top 10.
Yeah, and very much deserving of the former champion of this series as well. Brian Borg, though, not a easy customer to get by, always keen to have a battle and always ready to put it on the line. He's going to have to put it on the line this time as Mitchell McLeod goes around the outside and sweeps in front of the Premier Esports team driver there in very, very good fashion. And that was a very decisive move from the Talk Inc. driver there. And Ethan Warren continuing to apply massive pressure here to Brett Loxton. Might be worth Brett just giving up the position here and trying to follow Ethan and get a bit more rhythm going, because Ethan's really looking quite fast here. He really wants to start catching up to the likes of Cooper Webster, who's possibly starting to struggle a little bit. Although, that being said, since Suslin Harlow has gotten past just a couple of laps ago, he hasn't been able to pull away from the Evolution Racing Team driver, and also hasn't made up too much inroads into our leading pack here. Although Sam Blacklock keeping very good pace with our leader Madison Down at the moment also.
Yep, so Down still leading, Black in second. Harlow now up into 3rd place, is holding on to that train back of Blacklock. Cooper Webster still there. Then it's a little gap back to this battle for 5th place. Ethan Warren, if he's got the pace of the top 4, he is going to need to get past, and he's going to try into the S's. That looks like, to me, like Loxton hasn't fought too hard there as Warren's tried to come through.
Yeah, I think he was thinking what I was thinking just a few moments ago, which is just tuck in behind the faster guys, see if you can find some speed, find some rhythm, and hope that he can pull you up to the guys ahead. And if not, he'll be able to possibly pull something in the pits. But have a look at this train behind Andrew Gilliam and Brody Whitmore here. 6 or 7 cars following these guys, and they're all weaving across the track as they're desperately fighting to sort themselves out. And that's Steve Jansen, who's been put in a bit of an awkward position, but Andrew Gilliam seems to have no speed in that car at all. But he's a very fast driver, and it seems like he's just not able to overcome the deficit of speed that he has right now. And it's causing him to kind of check this pack up as Guy Leach and Steve Jansen are going to go side by side through these corners here. But yeah, Andrew Gilliam's kind of playing a bit of havoc with this pack here, because he keeps on falling back and then catching up to Brody and then falling back, as that's a V8 Sleuth Machine looking very wide and a little bit unsettled, maybe even a bit of a bump there. Guy Leach gets the move done, possibly unintentionally there, as Steve Jansen ran a little bit wide into Moss there. And who's going to have a big run round the outside? It's going to be the driver of Chris Coxhead, even Christian Smart. But Brody Whitmore's having to defend round the down the inside here, and Andrew Gilliam might just get the move done if he can hold it there, but he's out in the marbles and just loses some grip as he got onto the outside part of the track there. He's going to have to fight here with Chris Coxhead, and Chris Coxhead will take away the position for now. Good traction from Gilliam as he comes off the final corner there, but not good enough to retain his position. So another position goes to Chris Coxhead. And after a lightning start, Andrew Gilliam up to 11th from 17th, starting to fall back now. Lost 3 positions in the last couple of laps.
And his attempt on a pass there from Brody Whitmore backfired, put him off the line. Chris Coxhead didn't need a second invitation. He comes through into 13th place, and of course now sets up Andrew Gilliam to be a meal for his teammate, Guy Leach, behind.
Yeah, and it has to be said that Andrew Gilliam's Pursuit Sim Racing car looking a little bit worse for where scuff marks on the left-hand side, and also missing a little bit of that right rear fender. And I think there's also some scuffing on the right-hand side of the car as well. So that car's been in the wars a little bit. The 2 cars that haven't been in the wars are the ones out in front. It's been pretty easy, cruisy sailing for them. Former teammates as well, Madison Down and Sam Blacklock. Sam's now moved to Altus Esports, and they've been having great success early on in the in the V8s, especially in V8 Scops, where Dane Warren picked up his first race victory as a driver with that team and showing good progression in these cars. And Sam Blacklock looking to put on a good show this evening. He's starting to pull away ever so gently from Suslan Harlow there, as Chris Coxhead looks to progress himself even further down into turn number 1 there, applying plenty of pressure to Brodie Whitmore, who is definitely feeling it, a little bit defensive and squirrely on the brakes there. Not gonna be able to give up any room whatsoever. Chris Coxhead, as you said, no second invitation needed to go for a move for him. And as we said at the beginning of this broadcast, very keen to make a move and is very much a racer, more so than a fast lapper. And he has been progressing his way through the field tremendously at the moment. +8 spots, but also Brodie Whitmore is +8 spots. So both of these guys have been doing an immensely good job to get themselves through the field, but it's going to be +9 for Chris now and only +7 for Brodie, as the change of position happens there fairly easily for Chris Coxhead. And now he'll progress and see if he can catch up to Brian Borg and Mitchell McLeod, who are about 4 or 5 seconds down the road. And we are now pretty much at the critical lap where people can start pitting and make it to the end of the race. So it'll be interesting to see, especially from this pack of 10 odd cars in the bottom of the or the second half of the field here. If anyone decides to pull the trigger early and go for a bit of an alternate strategy, man, I wouldn't be surprised to see do that. Would be someone like maybe I don't know, probably Taliancic.
Well, I was thinking Steve Jansen, but you're certainly right that at this point, if you're at the back of this field and the battling is costing you a lot of time and you think your clean air pace is a lot better, then the early pit stop would give you an opportunity for an undercut. But you'd have to pull out a lot of time as Gilliam goes wide, I think, there, losing 2 spots through Moss Corner. So Guy Leach and Christian Smart are going to sneak on through there. The undercut now would gain you a lot of track positions, but you'd be suffering towards the end. Gilliam now, he might want to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe both of the Pursuit Sim sports cars will come in the next couple of laps as we ride on board with Paul Mansell and the Army Tricks racing car on the rear wing there as we come through the S's. He's following Andrew Gilliam very intently there. And no one coming to pit road. What did I say? Michael Taliancic, reading my mind, comes down in the pit lane, the first one to bite the dust. Normally the last to come into the pits, but this week he's going to flip it round as he's stuck back in a bit of traffic. And we saw good pace from him. He started the race way further up the field in 14th compared to where he was sitting in about 19th, 20th position there. So definitely one of the people that can make a bit of an alternate strategy work, and he is the first to come down onto pit road. So we'll have to see if anyone else from this train decides to cover in the next couple of laps, because of course these guys have been fighting pretty intensely and holding each other up pretty much every corner. So definitely be a good strategy to get out of this train, and as you said, David, get some fresh air and put some nice clean laps in and jump a couple of your opponents here.
Yeah, of course, this clockwise circuit really eats into your front left-hand tyres in just about any car, and there's nothing like a V8 and a spool differential to eat into your rear tyres as well. So I'm pretty sure tyre wear is going to be not absolutely critical, but there's no way that this circuit is nice to a set of tyres.
Definitely not, and especially not at 38 degrees track temp as well. And that's a CMR car in the background, and that might even be, well, it's not the 21 car, so it'll have to be James Mackey there in the pit lane. We thought Steve Jansen might be one to come in, but he's decided that his CMR team car has got a couple more laps in it. Now, up at the front of the field, Sam Blacklock just starting to fall away a little bit now from our race leader Madison Down. The gap is still just within a second, ever so slightly, but more importantly, Jackson Suslan Harlow in that TTL Esports machine is starting to catch up to Sam and is also dragging Cooper Webster along with him. So that gap between those two drivers was a little over a second. It's been reined in over the last couple couple of laps, and these guys are going to possibly duke it out before the end of this race. Just half a second separating them now, and Sam Blacklock's going to have to find a little extra something if he wants to start catching that TTR driver. But at the moment, he's about 0.2 of a second a lap slower than everyone around him.
Yeah, and tough run through the last couple of corners for him. He's now 1.2 seconds behind down, but this battle further down continues. Andrew Gilliam's now the cork in the bottle with Paul Mansell, Steve Jansen, and Greg Sharp behind. Jansen sticks his bright yellow nose out for a little bit. He's not going to make a move into turn 1, but if Paul Mansell doesn't get through on Gilliam soon, Steve Jansen's showing that he'll come on through himself.
Yeah, and Steve Jansen's had some pretty good results in this series and had some good racing as well. Definitely be looking to move himself much closer to the top 10 for today though, but a couple of drivers including Paul Mansell and Andrew Gilliam preventing him from doing so at the moment. And I think that he's definitely, as you said David, one of the drivers that should be coming into the pit lane very shortly just to maximize his potential in this race. The leader though, Madison Down, continuing to look extremely strong, and that gap to Suslin Harlow for Sam Blacklock has come down by another 1/10 of a second on the last lap. Pace has picked up for Sam Blacklock ever so slightly, but that gap is just getting smaller and smaller, and Madison Down, fastest car on track that last lap by. Gonna be interested to see, so Michael Taliancic, who pitted from that group that we saw earlier, 120.6 is roughly what the rest of that pack are doing, or a 120.3 that time by. His first full lap on his new tires, a 119.2. So he's already picked up 1.2 seconds on them at the moment. He's just picked up another second, but he's got James Mackey, who's also just come out of the pit lane as well. So a little bit of a fight there, and that's still going to help him in picking up all those positions through the rest of the field there. They are going to clear Andrew Gilliam, who has decided to come in, and he was a cork in the bottle for a couple of those guys there. So Michael Taliancic has cleared Mackey there and cleared Gilliam. If you can continue the good pace, you might be able to clear a couple more drivers as well. 119.7 that last lap, and it's not going to be enough to jump the guys who are a little bit ahead of him. Christian Smart, Guy Leach, and Brody Whitmore, they're all still lapping at around that same pace, if not slightly quicker. So he's going to have to get a little more in there. That being said though, those guys are actually lapping very closely to our leaders at the moment. Guy Leach on a 119.3, only 0.3 of a second slower than Sam Blacklock, and only 0.2 of a second slower than Jackson Suslin Harlow. But the fastest man at the moment is Cooper Webster behind Suslin Harlow, and you can see there that gap between Suslin Harlow and Sam Blacklock has just opened up a little bit as Cooper Webster starts applying a little more pressure here in his Evolution Racing Team machine.
Yeah, precisely. You can visually see it. Harlow was getting close to Blacklock, but now the pressure is moving from Harlow on Blacklock to Webster on Harlow. And these three cars that have all pitted and taken tyres, they did it to try and get away from each other, but now they're all together again. Steve Jansen's going around the outside of Taliancic in turn 1. Of course, that gives him the inside for turn 2. Looks like he's done it. Andrew Gilliam, of course, has the freshest tyres of the lot right behind. He's going to try and come through as well. I think Jansen might have stuck it. McKee might have stuck it. Apologies.
Yeah, I think Mackey might have. Taliancic, though, going for a late move down the inside. Mackey not phased. Continues along his trajectory as planned and does not have to give up any time there to the attacking Taliancic. And it does seem quite surprising that these guys are deciding to battle so intently as both of those drivers get, and the teammates have contact there, and that is Taliancic spun around by his Pursuit Sim Racing teammate. Andrew Gilliam will get a modem simulation replay of that, because that is the last thing that you want to see. Two teammates coming together, and that kind of occurred there. James Mackey ran a little bit deep into Moss, and I think Michael Taliancic might have done a little so out of sympathy, and that just caught Andrew Gilliam a little unawares there. He was going for a tighter, faster line through the mid corner, Michael Talyancic was very slow and kind of went for a two-stage approach to that corner. And unfortunately, he has ended up in a bit of a half spin thanks to his teammate.
For Guy Leach, is that? He's been a long time on the pit lane. That car's not looking good at the front right.
Yeah,
he's also had some kind of problems. Drama's kicking off, and look how close Webster has gotten to Harlow for third place.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting here. These guys really don't want to be fighting too much. Cooper Webster, very smart head on young shoulders, but also doesn't mind getting involved in a big battle as well. So, a couple of more front runners now starting to file into the pits. Ethan Warren and Marlon McMullen both on the lane. We'll see where they come out and how they're able to progress with their strategies. Ethan Warren looking to catch this group of cars here. He has about a 3 to 4 second deficit to make up, so if these guys stay out for another 2 to 3 laps, we might actually see him achieve that. Have a bit of a difficult time once they do come out though. And you can see Sam Blacklock starting to fall away a little bit from Madison down. Not too badly. 0.4 of a second lap that time by, it has to be said though. And Suslin Harlow and Cooper Webster getting very closely, but as we said, we wouldn't expect these guys to be overtaking each other unless there's a super prime opportunity, one that just can't be overlooked. And oh, Cooper, they're all coming down onto the lane now, so all covering off Ethan Warren here. And is that a little bit of contact between Suslin Harlow and Webster? And where has Suslin Harlow disappeared to? He's there, thank goodness. Okay. Thought there might have been a bit of an issue there for the TTL Esports driver. The only issue is that he's got a couple of cars blocking his view as he comes into his pit box there. The Gone Rogue Motorsports, their car of, I think that's Jack Boyd. Oh, and he's run deep into the S's and given up a spot to Chris Coxhead, but he's also looking at it. That car doesn't look like it's performing or handling very well at all. And he is currently on the lane, so we'll see if he decides to take any repairs in that surface. But Ethan Warren and Marlon McMullen very close to each other, but they came out very far behind Cooper Webster and Sam Blacklock, and Blacklock has actually come out quite a ways ahead of Webster as well, and Suslin Harlow has come out just behind Sam. So very interesting little set of pit stops here. Big loser there, Cooper Webster. Time on the lane looked like it was a couple of seconds slower. Pit time only about half a second slower than Suslin Harlow, but actually faster than Blacklock. So a little bit of work needed for Cooper Webster on his total pit lane time there. And he's now subsequently about 2 to 3 seconds behind these guys here. And he's also got a bit of a pick in Greg Sharp that he'll have to get through as well, assuming that Greg does not come onto the pit lane this time, which he does. So luckily for Evolution Racing Team there, a little bit of annoyance has gotten out of the way, but still quite a gap to make up to these two cars ahead.
Yeah, Madison down now out of the pit lane, 1.5 seconds clear of Sam Blacklock. I think just having a couple extra seconds in the pit lane transit time, that's the kind of thing you get if you just overshoot your pit box. So we didn't see it, but that's the kind of thing that might have happened to someone like Cooper Webster or indeed Ethan Warren, who also had a pretty slow pit lane time.
Yeah, very true. And we did see those three cars coming into the pit lane at the same time, and all their pit boxes were right next to each other, so definitely could have tripped over a little bit there. And you're quite right, Ethan Warren actually has the slowest pit lane time of anyone that hasn't had to look like repaired any damage or anything while they've been in the lane. So that would explain why he's actually come out behind Brett Loxton and has also come out about 6 seconds behind Cooper Webster as well, and is now in a bit of a battle here with Marlon McMullen, but Marlon has not been looking particularly strong throughout this race, equaling Ethan Warren's times at the moment. But if Ethan is able to pull away from Marlon, we might just see him start to shoot away up the road. and have a second attack at Brett Loxton, who he was able to force into submission earlier in the race. Gonna have to do it all again though with 17 laps remaining here at Motorsport. Been a very intense opening stint to this race, and field now a little bit more spread out, but still quite a few battles occurring. That big train of cars that we had has spread out a little bit. Everyone just started to sort themselves out as people came into the pit lane at different times. Only one driver is still yet to pit this evening, and that is a man who is very well known in the Australian sim racing community but hasn't made many appearances here in the V8 Supercar, and that is Clint Shane Smith, who is runs many series and also runs quite a lot of the All-Star events as well. And that is Michael Talyancic, who has run off the track, and something involving Brodie Whitmore possibly as well in the One Performance racing car. We'll get a modem simulation replay. Not quite sure what happened there. Michael maybe just ran a little bit wide into Moss here, or maybe just lost it a little. Oh, lost it out of turn number 2, and great save. As the car speared across the track there to the left. Michael able to regain the control of his car and will fight to get past Brodie again. Brodie was looking much stronger in this race earlier on. It's really dropped off now. He was up 7 or 8 positions previously, and now he is almost back where he started. So, I'm not sure. Oh, he had a really slow pit stop. About twice as long as everyone else. So maybe he incurred a speeding penalty, which would be very unfortunate. It goes to show that one minor mistake can make a dramatic effect on your race. But look now towards the 2 CMR cars who are starting to get a little bit closer on tracks. James Mackey and Steve Jansen. Andrew Gilliam has also just gotten past Greg Sharp in the last couple of laps as well. And Greg Sharp is looking to just continue to plonk his way towards the end of this race. Currently in 17 in his Stealth Sim Sports machine, and always a man that we see in this field very committed to the V8 Supercar, and always good to see him and his Stealth Sim Sports car out on track. Looks like he might even be closing down on Andrew Gilliam at the moment, who has been suffering continually throughout this race after suffering some pretty substantial damage earlier on. But Greg Sharp starting to close in now and might even be ready to go for a move in the next couple of laps.
5 laps fresher tyres for Greg Sharp as well, so that's something he's got in his arsenal over Andrew Gilliam, and you can just see in the last lap how much that's closed up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve Jansen in the battle up ahead, he's got 6 lap fresher tyres than his teammate James Mackey, who we just saw getting massively loose on the exit to turn number 3 there. But here comes Greg Sharp on Andrew Gilliam. The lazy eyes of the Stealth Sim Sports car looking to get past. Not able to do it this time by though. Got a nice exit out of Moss Corner, so there might be something to do as they come up to the S's. Greg Sharp tucks in behind the Pursuit Sim Racing car of Andrew Gilliam, who's going to go to the outside of the track, and the overspeed is immense for Greg Sharp. Goes right down to the inside, and Andrew Gilliam has absolutely nothing to respond with in answer to that. And Greg Sharp makes up a position in his Stealth Sim Sports car. Nice move there. Very nice, clean move. But up at the front of the field, it is on for position number 2. Jackson Suslan-Harlow has caught Sam Blacklock in his Altus Esports machine. It is now applying plenty of pressure here as they come down into Moss Corner. They've got a couple of seconds back to Cooper Webster and a couple of seconds up to Madison Down, so they can have a little bit of a fight here, but if they get too intense, they're definitely going to fall off Madison, and they might fall into the clutches to Cooper Webster here as well. So these guys are going to have to watch out if they decide to get into a battle here with about 14 laps to go.
Yeah, it must have been a sloppy start to the lap for Sam Blacklock, because now the gap is really only 3/10 here. You see Blacklock's riding a little bit more of the curbs. Susan Harlow's setting up a little bit more of an exit with a later apex. Slight differences to the driving style, and of course that's going to have an effect with how they chew through the tyres.
Yeah, absolutely right. And quite a few of these drivers this evening were saying that you get about 3 to 4 good laps on these tyres, and then they start to fall off, but they kind of stay around the same level of, I guess for the first 3 laps, you've got great tyres, and then for the rest of the race, you've kind of got good tyres, which is going to be pretty useful for most of these drivers. Track temperature hasn't changed a whole lot throughout this race, so it's been fairly consistent, which means that the drivers will not have had to have changed their driving style too much throughout the race so far, but could very much change with a couple of laps to go. Would be nice to see the track temp drop and get some fast laps out of these guys. Man that currently holds the fastest lap is the gentleman in position number 2, Sam Blacklock, who is fighting to hang on at the moment for position number 2, and Jackson Susan Harlow still applying pressure there. Cooper Webster behind them, marginally slower or faster last lap as well, so looks like Madison Downs really starting to take off now. 0.4 of a second faster than any of the top 3 drivers, and 3 to 0.4 of a second faster than Cooper Webster down there in 4th position as well. So monumental speed from the 7-time official champion there. And, you know, that just goes to show the experience of the man behind the wheel of the #1 machine in that TTR esports car. James Mackey's been doing a good job to hold off Steve Jansen, considering the tyre deficit that he has right now. Mackey been out on those tyres for 13 laps already. He's going to have another 12 to go before the end of this race, and Steve Jansen, his teammate, been on his laps for about 7, so that's 6 laps of fresher tyres, and as we said, they're kind of around the same from lap 3 until lap you need fuel, so might not be as much of an advantage for Steve as we possibly may have imagined, but we'll see how he's able to attack his teammate here. If he is able to attack his teammate, has been closing in on the last couple of laps though. Last lap it was about 0.2 of a second, as just go back to Sam Blacklock and Susan Harlow here, who are still continuing to trade very fast lap times at the moment. They've picked up the pace once again. 18.639 for Sam, 18.602 for Susan Harlow, and just behind them it's an 18.853 for Cooper Webster. So they've pulled away from Webster, they've lost ground to Madison, and they've traded lap times to within a couple of hundredths of a second. So very impressive pace from these guys at the moment.
Yeah, it's all just sort of holding position right now. You got to wonder, for the last 11 laps, what can Susan Harlow find to put Blacklock under pressure? Is he just biding his time, or is there still more in that car?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, at the moment you would think that both of these guys are pretty much going as flat stick as they possibly can, and Sam Blacklock has, you know, he's been in the same position of this race since the great start that he got, obviously taking that position away from Susan Harlow. So Susan Harlow's probably pretty intent to get that position back, but without seeing a mistake from Sam Blacklock here, it does seem rather unlikely that a move is going to get done. I think the only thing that Jackson can really do is just stay in that zone very closely to Sam Blacklock and just continuing to apply pressure and hope that he makes a bit of a forced error at some point as we get down to 10 laps to go here at Motorsport. Chris Coxhead, one of the biggest movers of this race. Scratch that. He is the biggest mover of this race, up into 11th position at the moment. Started in 21st. So fantastic movement from the V8 Sleuth esports driver, and as we've said many times this evening, a great racer, and always very much getting himself through the field and getting himself lots of positions. And the next target on his list is Brian Borg in the Premier Esports sim racing machine, who's, again, a very much a racer, does not like losing positions, and especially likes making it very difficult for people to get through. And Chris Coxhead could not have used any more road as he came through Moss Corner there. And a little bit of a mistake here from Sam Blacklock. So this is exactly the kind of thing that Suslan Harlow has been looking for, staying there, applying the pressure. And Sam, for the second time in the last 2 laps, has been looking very untidy through the last part of the S's and into White's corner there.
Yeah, the fast right-hand corner and then the change of direction to the left and then back to the right again. If you're starting to wear out your tyres or if the balance of the car isn't how you like, oh, bit of a lock-up, bit of a slide there once again. Harlow's close as he's ever been, but doesn't quite get the power down on the exit as well. They're coming towards Moss Corner, slowest part of the track. Difficult, unsighted apex here. Suslan Harlow needs a good run off here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I have noticed that both of these cars do seem to be set up pretty differently. Very strong end on Suslan Harlow. He really likes to attack the corner entry quite early. Sam is consistently flaring out the rear of that car, and I guess, I don't know if he's just hoping that it'll stick or knowing that it'll stick, but he's going to have to go defensive here, surely, as Suslan Harlow goes for a late move, but Blacklock not interested, not going to give up a bar. He knew the TTL Esports car was not close enough. Oh, but he is as they come into White, and it's a very late move, but a good one there from Suslan Harlow. Sam's going to have the overspeed on the exit of the corner, might just be able to cut him off as they come into turn 1, and he does so. So a little bit of a chink in the armor starting to show for Blacklock here. He's been able to cover it off the last 2 attacks, but you know, if Suslan Harlow keeps on being this relentless with the attacking, he might not be able to save it every single time. So we'll see here. This was Chris Coxhead using all the road, and as we saw, great traction, and Brian Borg nowhere with the rear tires as he tried to get the traction down, and Chris Coxhead had the move pretty much done underneath the Mobil 1 sign there. So great job from the V8 Sleuth racing driver. He officially tallies himself up to plus 11 positions and rising a bit of a gap up to Mitchell McLeod, who is his next target, but not impossible. Sam Blacklock now covering off the inside. Oh, that's very close on the entry there. He's probably going to have to run Suslan Harlow wide into the next part of the S's here. Does not do so though, able to cut across without any overlap there, and retains that position. But look at that in the background there, the Evolution Racing team car of Cooper Webster closing in. It was 3 seconds just a few laps ago, down to 1.2, and he's definitely not afraid to get involved and get onto the podium in this race. Does have to watch out for that shiny new black stripe on his license there, but it looks like he's got plenty of points on there to risk before the first round of the iRacing World Championship, Endurance World Championship this weekend. And that is Steve Jansen parked on the outside of turn of the S's there. And that is very strange to see a car park there. So he actually managed to get past James Mackey and just maybe had to let the cat out or open the door, or and now he's coming to the pits. So possibly an unexpected visitor or some real life commitments there for Steve Jansen. Very unfortunate, as he was just starting to make some progress and get past his teammate there. Sam Blacklock not making any progress on the leader, having to defend and fight for his position on the second spot of the podium this evening. And Cooper Webster is reining in that gap very quickly, down to just 1 second to the car ahead of Jackson Suslan Harlow. Was ever so slightly quicker I say ever so slightly, how about half a second quicker than both of those cars the last time by. He'll be looking for a similar recovery on this lap. But Blacklock's been looking pretty good. Hasn't been getting the exit that he'd probably like at the Moss corner there. Equal to Suslan Harlow, but Suslan Harlow has the draft, and you can see looking back from the Logitech G Altus Esports machine that the TTL Esports machine is closing and closing, going to the outside. Bit of a defensive line there from Sam Blacklock. Maybe a little bit of a bump on the rear of the car as they come through the final part. Yes, this is a late move to the inside of Whites, but too late for Jackson Suslan Harlow, and he's lost big ground there. That's going to give Sam Blacklock a bit of reprieve and might even allow him to break away, as now Cooper Webster has, I think the gap between Webster and Harlow is exactly the same as Harlow and Blacklock now. So these cars all spaced very evenly apart and all fighting for the second spot on the podium now with just 5 laps to go. Could be any one of these drivers with just one small mistake that gets to stand on the second place of the podium this evening. But for now, Sam Blacklock is the man in command of that position, and he is not going to want to relinquish it for anything. Suslan Harlow not quite as close this time by. Cooper Webster will be enjoying a bit of double draft in the background there. Sam Blacklock, though, not making it easy for either of these guys, hugging the inside of the track and only moving to the outside at the very last moment. Suslan Harlow getting some great speed down the Andretti straightaway there.
Yeah, and of course, all of these 3 guys pitted on the same lap. They've got the same age tyres. There's no difference in that regard between Blacklock, Harlow, and Webster. Webster's maybe just looked after them a little bit more, not burned them up at the start of the stint. Blacklock and Harlow, they're battling, can't be good for it, and Blacklock runs a little bit wide. Harlow is right there again.
Yeah, didn't seem to really affect the amount of momentum he was able to carry through that corner, though. And that's what we were talking about just before with the different setups of these cars. And TTL Esports car looking like it can make those apexes much better, but that Altus Esports car just carrying momentum through the corners no matter where he decides to put the car. Obviously, apexes are preferable, and this is looking good from Suslan Harlow. A little bit wider on the entry into the second part of the corner, and good traction. I suspect that this could be the undoing for Sam Blacklock here. He weaves a little bit to the middle of the track there, but he's going to hold it tight to the inside for Suslan Harlow to the outside here. Cooper Webster looking on in the background, licking his lips, waiting for position number 2 to become vacant for himself. Sam Blacklock, though, just has enough in him to keep that position, and Suslan Harlow sliding through the middle of the S's there and not able to get the job done. Looking good through the mid-corner and carrying some great speed on the exit. Not going to be able to do anything into turn number 1, though. Too high speed, a corner, very little braking required, and he will have to look for another opportunity. Does seem like Cooper Webster hasn't really been able to claw in and attack Suslan Harlow as yet. Suslan Harlow, though, repeatedly catching Sam Blacklock and having a bit of a stab at that Logitech G Altus Esports car.
Yeah, Harlow's shown that he'll take any opportunity, and that's why he's got Blacklock scared in the final corner. Blacklock won't open up the full entry of the corner because Harlow's previously shown that if that's open, he'll dive in there. And that's what's compromising Blacklock through the final corner, but he's got to just park it on the apex, and once again, out of Moss, Harlow gets a pretty good run. This is the longest straight on the circuit, the highest speeds. It's where the slipstream matters the most, and that's why Blacklock is trying to break it.
Yeah, they do love playing these games, these young boys in the bad supercars. And Suslan Harlow is going to try and go for a space where there is no grey stuff. And I dare say that green texture on the inside of the track is not going to provide too much grip for you there, Jackson. And he's going to have to try and get a little more creative, but possibly creative with the actual track limits to try and get past Sam Blacklock, who is putting on a fantastic defensive drive. We were wondering if these guys had any more in the tank. Well, if they're not pushing with everything that they have with just 2 laps left to go and a spot in the, for second up for grabs, then I don't know what more motivation you could possibly have to go fast. These guys are definitely pushing it to the absolute limit, and they're just so evenly matched at the moment, not quite able to get the move done, especially for Jackson Suslin-Harlow. Now, much better run here for Sam Blacklock, and he got a great exit. So even though Suslin-Harlow was very good through the mid-corner and almost tapped him as they were coming through the second apex of that corner there, Blacklock might have a little more room to play with at the end of the straight here, but he's still going to keep it very defensive, and Cooper Webster might just have a bit of a look around the outside, but he's going to probably actually be able to carry some nicer momentum and a little calmer through this section of corners here and set himself up for something out of whites. Definitely had the best run through that corner out of all of them and took it right to the curb as well. Jackson Suslin-Harlow having to cut a little bit in on the track there, and now 2 laps to go. Cooper Webster is very much getting himself involved in this battle. He's been waiting patiently, but wait patiently no more for the young man in the Evolution Racing team, and he is going to be looking for a way past Jackson Suslin-Harlow, who is now on the defensive after being on the attack lap after lap since pretty much lap 30. He is now on the defensive from the ERT driver, and Cooper Webster is not going to make it easy. He wants these 2 positions, and quite frankly, I think that he's probably capable of grabbing both of them with the right circumstances, and this could be very interesting here. Very tight between all 3 cars. Jackson Suslin-Harlow in the draft, Cooper Webster also in the draft, getting a bit of a double slipstream here, and Sam Blacklock trying desperately to weave across the track and spoil that for all of them. Suslin-Harlow goes up the inside, not quite close enough. A little bit of overlap with Cooper Webster, who's going to go around the outside in the first part of the S's. Not quite able to stick it there though he's forced Jackson Suslin-Harlow offline, and Cooper Webster is going to go around the outside at white, carry the momentum off the corner and chop him off into 1. That is a fantastic move from the young man, and he's going to hold it around the outside through 1 as well. Will Suslin-Harlow be able to come back on the outside at turn number 1? I do not think that he will, and he is hung out to dry. Little bit of a bump there as they come through the second part of turn number 1. Suslin-Harlow desperately trying to hang on to the final spot on the podium here, but he is not going to be able to do it as they come through turn number 3 there. He's going to have to get creative once more, this time behind an ERT machine, not an Altus Esports machine, and unfortunately he is not able to get anything done there. Big crossed up for Cooper Webster and very tight on the second apex. Big run here from Suslin-Harlow as they come out of Moss, and he is going to have a big slipstream. We've seen him very effective as they come down the Andretti Straight many times. He's going to have to make something work on the outside of the track if he's going to get anything done. Luckily for Blacklock, he's in the clear now, and Suslin-Harlow goes for the move, but he's forced to the outside. A little bit of contact there, but the man at the head of the field, who has just run an absolutely perfect race and takes home victory at Motorsport, is Madison Down for TTR. In second place, Sam Blacklock in third, Cooper Webster and Jackson Suslin-Harlow, after having third position next to his name for such a long time, eventually has to give up that position. And behind in the background, who's going to make it over the line? Ethan Warren, slowest man in the pit lane, and apparently put in the least amount of fuel as well. He has a mad dash to the line and loses out to Mullen McMullen. Couple of cars still circulating around the track. Brian Borg coming home ahead of Christian Smart in the Golden Rogue Motorsports machine, and Madison Down just continuing on, having a bit of a cool down lap, make sure that he saves the brakes for maybe a testing day, and I think those tyres will probably be ruined either way. But a great performance from the 7-time official series champion, and you would expect nothing less, especially with that VRS sponsorship on the side of his car. Of course, a coach for VRS, and has been doing that in the V8 Supercar for a very long time now. So your results for this evening: Madison Down takes home victory here round number 2, season 2 of the iRacing Aussie Driver Search official V8 Supercars Championship. Sam Blacklock for Logitech G Altus Esports came home second, 8.2 seconds behind Madison there. Cooper Webster, great move in the penultimate lap of this race to come home on the final step of the podium. Jackson Suslin-Harlow, a fantastically fought race, but unfortunately for him, just losing out in the dying moments and coming home in 4th position. Brett Loxton came home in 5th. A bit of a quiet race for him. Marlon McMullen getting Ethan Warren by just half a tenth over the line as the young man for Astro Gaming Altus Esports ran out of fuel, still came home in 7th position there. Michael Cracknell, both of the Zuva racing cars having a fairly relaxed evening, not a whole lot going on for them, and position number 8 for Crackers. Mitchell McLeod in the Torque Inc. car comes home in 9th position, and Chris Coxhead, the man who overtook more cars than anybody else this evening, started 21st and into position number 10 in tonight's race.
11th place and not short of action for himself is Brian Borg. 12th is Christian Smart, and then 13th goes to Greg Sharp. 14th place is James McKee, beating out his teammate there and being the best placed CMR team car. 15th is Andrew Gilliam. 16th goes to Brody Whitmore. 17th is Paul Mansell. And then 18th is Clint Shane Smith. 19th, last man on the lead lap, Michael Taliancic. And then weird issues for him, Steve Jansen gets 20th place.
Yes, and then our non-finishers for this evening, Jack Boyd, big damage to his Gone Rogue Motorsports car. Guy Leach suffering as well earlier on in the race. Wayne Burke, a bit of an innocent victim in an incident earlier on as John Emerson had a bit of contact and spun into the way of the One Performance racing driver. But some absolutely fantastic racing here from Motorsport this evening. We would have expected nothing less in the Aussie Driver Search iRacing official V8 Supercars series. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, as well, if you have not smashed the like button on this video, to do so right now before you forget. And also, if you are not subscribed to on all of your YouTube accounts, the iRacing Esports Network, make sure you are as well. Don't forget to hit that little bell for us too. Plenty of action coming up on the iRacing Esports Network and also on SimSpeed TV as well. Thursday night, we have the GT1 race at Virginia International Raceway. My personal, I think, favorite racetrack of all time. And we saw some great efforts from the GT1 guys last week out at Spa. On Saturday, we have the Majors Series, which is a very unique series, which has been run the last couple of years. Some absolutely fantastic racing in all the unique events, and a great way to find who is the best overall driver across many different disciplines. And on Sunday, big race, V8 Scops come to you from the historic Oran Park. Unfortunately now, I don't know what it is now. I think it's a bunch of houses in the suburbs of Sydney, but it was previously once a beautiful and very fun to drive racetrack. And thanks to the iRacing service who scanned it before its ultimate demise, we will be gladly returning there for a race in the V8 Supercars, which of course drove there so often. And it will be a fantastic race, and round number 3 of the V8 Scop series will not disappoint. Thank you very much to David Haynes for joining me in the commentary booth this evening. And also thank you to Jay Kennedy for bringing us the fantastic images that we've seen tonight. And also to all of our drivers who put on a fantastic show and some great driving and car control from all. My name is Zach Hanlon. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Aussie Driver Search V8 Supercars official series. We will be back at the same time next week for a race at a track that I can't remember right now. But until then, stay well. It'll be Oran Park as well in following with V8 Scop. So those guys will be plenty in practice. And until then, stay well.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got with the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God!